look, if you truly believe the Broncos suck and the Broncos, no way they win the AFC, as Mike the Mouth tweeted out, the Broncos are the luckiest team in the world. They have no chance of making the Super Bowl. So this way you can pick the Bills, because there's no chance in hell that the Broncos are going to make the Super Bowl. They're the luckiest team alive. Bo Nix sucks. So you're basically free rolling me, because I can't win because the Broncos can't win. And you can win because you think the Bills can win. Cabral, I find to be one of the most intolerable people in poker, and I hope that his 15 minutes runs out soon. I think he's absolutely the most annoying person I've ever seen.
95% of the teams getting eliminated in the first half of week 13. I haven't followed it for a long time, but that seems like unprecedented numbers.
Yeah, it was the most carnage in any Survivor week that they've ever had.
All right. Gamble Up episode 15 is off and running. It is December 3rd, 2025. I'm your host, A. Schwartz, alongside Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Hey, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
And Mr. David Baker in Las Vegas. How are you, sir?
Good. I feel like that's Ross's, that's his MO.
Yeah, that's what it feels like some days.
Big beast mode guy. For sure, up here in the Northwest. But let's get onto it. We're going to talk a little bit of poker, and then we're going to jump into NFL. There's no golf this time of season, so are you golfing at all in Vegas? What's going on down there?
It's freezing, and it's poker season. It's the second biggest poker season of the year, and I'm glad we could find time to do this, because there's a lot of poker tournaments going on, and you guys have different schedules and I have a different schedule, and I'm going to be playing a lot of poker over the next month. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you more pods, and we'll just have to be a little flexible on times we do and put out. So if you like it, then please let us know, because it's not easy this time of year with both poker and holidays and work and everything like that we all three have going. So, give us a reason to do it if we're, if you're enjoying the show.
We got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We got a 3-day window each week to try and find a time, different schedules, but I'm sure we'll try and find, especially as the NFL playoffs ramp up and we get into that season. We're going to be excited.
I love doing the show, and it gives me a chance to kind of gather thoughts together. And I like to do this stuff, because A, I think a lot of people enjoy it, and B, it helps keep me accountable for the things that I spew out there, the opinions that I have, because, Adam's very good at keeping me accountable when I do poorly and when I do well. And also it helps me formulate some thoughts, and also just run things by you guys and just by myself, just kind of throwing it out there. So I enjoy doing the show. And if you guys enjoy it, then please retweet it, tell your friends, subscribe, give reviews, all those things.
And send us stuff, your questions, throw them in either in email. I think Ross gives out the email address, or in the comments in the YouTube thread. Send us questions. We'll have a look.
Yeah, Twitter's definitely the easiest way to reach us. But if you don't like to log on to the hell site, then
and Roscoe,
you
maybe
can reach us on the email.
Check in from last week and have a look through the thread there in the YouTube, see if anybody dropped anything in there.
Yeah, YouTube comments are good.
Yeah, you mentioned it is a poker tournament season for sure. December has the Wynn event down in Las Vegas, as well as the World Series of Poker event in the Bahamas. That some of my friends are going to both. I think it's a bit divided in the poker world, and I think you can sort of characterize the World Series of Poker in the Bahamas as the higher buy-ins. I think Daniel tweeted today something about bankrolls being tested and unlimited rebuys in high stakes tournaments where people are going to go through a bunch of cash down there, versus the Wynn, where the buy-ins are sort of medium-sized to large, and a huge turnout every year down at the Wynn, because they do such a great job with everything they do at the Wynn. It's my favorite hotel in the world. I love that place. It's fantastic. And the tournaments are great as well. And the cash games, everything, the food, you name it, the Wynn has it. I understand, David, you're going to stay in Las Vegas and play all the Wynn events. Sort of give us your take on, having these two, tournament series head to head.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows my love for the World Series in general. I love the summer extravaganza, summer camp, whatever you want to call it. I've gone to, I think, 5 or 6 World Series Europes. I'm a little disappointed in just how they have completely catered and cratered to the high limit player pool or the stars or whatever you want to say. And believe me, I love the high limit. I just love it. I love watching the PGT, and I think it's great that they have a few tournaments in the summer. And I think and Triton is fantastic, but basically putting together a whole series where you're giving away bracelets at price points that are completely unattainable for even good poker players, unless you just happen to be, tied up with rich business people or you're part of the crew. It's kind of, I think, a little nonsense to me. I mean, this schedule is really terrible I don't even care from the mixed game perspective. I mean, although I think that it would be great if they fired off 3 or 4 mixed game events in there. But I mean, as somebody who's transitioned mostly to no limit, um, I think it's kind of crazy that they don't have some mid stakes. And I understand that the Bahamas is not really a destination that you can afford to go to, if you're the small stakes, and that's fine. But I think there's no reason why there shouldn't be an array of 1K to 5K events and have, if there was 3 or 4 of them, I would love to go and play those plus play the 25K main event. But I mean, I can't go when everything's, 100Ks and 50Ks and unlimited reentries. And so I'm kind of disappointed for that.
So let's quickly look at the events here. So it's $2,500 event number 1, $2,500 mystery bounty, flight A, B, and C for 3 days. Event 2 is a $75,000 Triton pot limit Omaha event. Event 3 is a $100K Triton pot limit Omaha main event. Event 4, $50,000 no limit hold'em high roller turbo. 5 is a $250,000 Triton no limit hold'em invitational. 6 is a $5,000 Super Colossus. So there's a sort of a quote unquote reasonable price point. One event there, other than the mystery bounty. Event 8, $125,000 Triton no limit 7-handed. Event 7 is a 10K Super Colossus. PLO. The next is 100K, 25K, 150, another 25, 10,000, 8 game, 25K, 50K, 25K, 25K. And then the closer's 2,500. So there's was that 3 events under 10,000?
3 events, and they're spaced like the first event, the last event, and then it's just impossible for somebody like me who, I feel like I'm at the upper portion of the pros in both skill level and ability to sell / support myself in these events. For somebody who's never been backed and not tied with any syndicate or group, like I have to take care of my own expenses for tournaments and everything. So, and I would say if you're, putting the list together of players who have stood the test of time and been able to play in reasonable stake events, like I've got to be pretty damn high up on the list. And for this not to be able to appeal to somebody like me just means that there are a lot of people that are not beneath me, but beneath my means and ability to secure funding and, whether it's via myself or selling or whatever. It just makes this tournament series unattainable for a lot of us. And I think if we're going to continue to boost up and be like, oh, Helmuth has 17, that's the big deal, and Deeb has 8 and Daniel has 7 or whatever, and then Daniel and Deeb, I'm not sure what Helmuth's plan is, because I know that he's kind of a nit when it comes to buy-ins, but we know Deeb and Narano aren't. And if they pick off a couple of these 48 player 31 unique entry events, like, does that really, is that really what they're trying to portray? And I understand the other side of it too, is that there's these online bracelets that I also think are kind of nonsensy as well on the other side, where you're able to enter unlimited times and you're able to enter until there's like 20% of the field left and you can't play unless you're in a designated state. So I think they're both kind of nonsense, to be honest. I think the great thing about the summer is that you have fields that are big enough that when you win, they mean something, and small enough that, and the price points are all different sizes that everybody can kind of find their way in. And I love the Triton, and it's great. And I think the Triton is fantastic for poker, and I hope it continues and all those things. But I don't think that, like, why do we need a Triton / World Series? Like, is the World Series just really in that desperate need of money to tie their self to that brand, or do they think their brand is like losing steam and they need Triton to legitimize it? Or I'm not really sure what, but it doesn't really give a great taste in my mouth. And I've talked to a lot of other people, and they think the same. That being said, I also,
sorry, are we past the point now where bracelets, sort of this bracelet total chase, Helmuth 17, really matters that much? Like, poker players inherently are looking for value. They're looking to maximize value, and going to play a 25K high roller in the Bahamas versus a bunch of wizards versus playing a 5K or a 2,500 at the Wynn, it seems like way better value to play at the Wynn.
Well, it doesn't matter to you, and it might not matter to some people, but it does matter to a lot of us that have basically tied our career and everything into something that they sold us. I mean, they sold us the prestige of the World Series, and they made us care about it, and they made a lot of people care about it. And granted, I don't care as much maybe, but I mean, I've been in the arena many, many times, and I've come out on top 4 of them, and those mean the world to me. And I've fallen short another dozen times, whether it was in second or third place, and those hurt more than anything else. So you can say, as somebody who doesn't really play tournaments and never really staked your career and your reputation and your whatever you want to call it, your fame or the way you're known or perceived in this industry, you haven't staked it on that, but a lot of people have. And it does mean stuff to a lot of us. It does mean a lot to a lot of us,
Does it mean it?
I'm as big a Sean Deeb fan as they come. I love Sean. Sean and I are good friends, and I hope that he breaks Helmuth's record. But if he does it by winning 30-person tournaments in the Bahamas and $400 online events, then that doesn't mean as much to me. So yes, there are more tournaments than there used to be, but also the fields are a lot bigger and a lot tougher than they used to be. So yes, Helmuth won his bracelets when there were 40 and 50 and 14 tournaments, but they were also much smaller fields, and they were also much weaker players. So you can make the argument both ways, but I personally, as somebody who believes and loves the World Series like Sean does, I mean, I think if you polled, all the poker players, who are the 10 players that care the most about the World Series, I think Sean and I would be up there, in every single list. And I hope he breaks it. Like I said, I'm a huge Deeb fan, but I hope he does it by winning the 1,500 triple draw and the 5,000 turbo no limit at the World Series, and 100K PLO at the World Series with 100 entries. I hope he doesn't do it by winning the 2 or 3 bracelets in the Bahamas with a 31-person field with 13 foreign business people and 8 high rollers. Like, that just doesn't have the same feel to me. And I don't think that Sean even loves that, to be honest. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he would rather if it was just, but he staked his reputation and his claim. And one thing that he has fought for is to be able to go after that Helmuth record. So obviously I don't fault him for going after it. It's just kind of the way that I perceive it. And I think Daniel's tweet, like, as I'm a Daniel fan and I'm a friend of Daniel's. I mean, we're not close, but we're definitely friendly. And we exchange conversations and talks. I mean, his tweet kind of just said it all today with, that these buy-ins are really going to test these guys. And it's like, I don't know, to me, poker's not who can snuggle up best with the richest guy from the crypto or online casino world or backroom, whatever. It's just, that's not it. And when you're winning all your things because you happen to be able to be buddy with, a certain group or a certain business person or whatever. And I'm not saying that I deserve to be in that group. I'm not as good as the Coons and the Haxtons of the world at poker. I don't claim to be. I'm not. But the World Series is basically, I can pony up a reasonable amount of money or even satellite my way into being able to contend with and fight with these people. And I don't really think that's what the World Series has become, but it's not going back. And so it's old man yelling at clouds meme.
When I think of bracelets, I think almost a higher, like you said, context matters, which bracelet you're counting and winning. And when I think of bracelets, I think of the ones in the summer is the top tier, the ones where people, there's a ton of people playing. It's, people satelliting into bigger events. Maybe it's a 10K. They satellite their way in. It's their big event of the year. And yeah, maybe there's only 145 people in a limit hold'em 10K, but it's still a great bracelet because all the best are there and it's in the summer in Vegas. Now, when I think of the next tier, I think of something like, this event here where it's a 25K, it's a 100K, it's a 250K where there's 33 people or whatever it is. And then the last tier I think of is online because we've seen basically what's been going on for years with online. I think some of it's finally getting taken care of by GG in the World Series of Poker. I'm glad to see it. And what's been happening taints the bracelets for me going back the whole way for online stuff. It's an excellent point. I think we used to kind of, Helmuth has 17 bracelets or Doyle has 10 or Johnny has 10, whatever it was. Yeah, Doyle won one with mixed doubles where it was like, 60 people, whatever it was. But we didn't care. We didn't think about context back then. But I think we do now. I think when we look at bracelets, we look at context, as far as that goes. But yeah, and I love Sean too. I think Sean and Daniel going head to head, getting close to the Phil would be great for poker. And to your point, I hope it happens with bracelets in the summer, but we'll see how that all shakes out. I wanted to get your take on a hand. Do you watch Hustler Casino live at all? The stream, the high stakes games?
So I do want to go back and watch it. I did watch a few on X. They retweet
Sure.
all the big hands. And it's funny, the hand that you had mentioned you wanted to talk about is literally the one hand that I watched. It
was all over Twitter.
Yeah, it was a very enjoyable hand. I very much enjoyed it, to be honest.
For those of us who enjoy watching Martin Cabral go through pain, it was very enjoyable. But here's what I mean. Martin's playing in this 500, 1,000, no limit hold'em game with, tens of millions on the tip, whatever. And I'm not, but I don't understand this hand at all. And maybe I'm not thinking near on this level, but I don't, for the life of me, understand how this, I think the pot ended up being a little over 2 million. It's not the biggest pot. Tom Dwan won a $3 million pot in this game a while ago. But I wanted to, so let's kind of roll through what happened in this hand. It's 500, 1,000, as I mentioned, and before the flop, there's some action. There's 22,000 in the middle before the flop, and they go four ways to a flop of Jack 10 with two spades. Player Steve in the small blind has Jack 9, so he flops 3 of a kind 9 kicker. Cabral in the big blind has Jack 6, flops 3 of a kind with a 6 kicker, and Alan Keating is in late position with 10s, and he flops bottom full. Steve bets 1,000. Steve starts with 800,000, by the way, and Martin has 500,000, and Keating has both of them covered. Steve bets 1,000 into 22K. Martin flats the 1,000, and Keating raises 25,000. Steve calls, and now Martin back raises to 69,000. Keating flats, and Steve now with Jack 9 shoves for almost 800K, his whole stack, and Cabral calls, and of course Alan calls because he knows he's got somebody beat at least, and probably both at this point. And he's got to fade the full house outs. But my question here is Cabral, after Steve back shoves for 800,000, Cabral's got 3 of a kind with no kicker, hoping that Keating's bluffing, and Steve has nothing and puts Alan on a bluff and is now rebluffing for his whole stack. Like he's basically bluff catching two guys in a $2 million pot. I just maybe I don't think on this level, but I don't know how he calls there.
Well, I think it's good if you're not thinking on this level. This is a terrible level to think on. This is one of the worst played hands I've ever seen.
Oh.
I mean, Martin is completely out of line in this hand. Look, when it goes 1,000, you call. Keating makes it 25,000, and now this other guy calls. You make it 69, and Keating calls again. Like there's red flags all over the place for Keating, and then this Steve guy goes all in for 700,000 or whatever to have you covered. Like, what are you hoping these two people have? Like, it's absolutely insane. I mean, is he hoping that the Steve guy has a draw, which is probably, coin flipping against your Jack 6? Like he's got to have like King, Queen of Spades, or, Queen 9 of Spades or something like that. So you're praying that this guy has the draw. But if this guy has the draw, then what does Alan have? And if Alan has the draw, then this guy probably has a jack. So it's like your hand is just never any good. Like Steve gives him a chance to get off of this hand so easily. And I got to say, I mean, I love to see it because Cabral, I find to be one of the most intolerable people in poker, and I hope that his 15 minutes runs out soon because I think he's absolutely the most annoying person I've ever seen. And Keating, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. Like, it's funny because when Keating came on the scene, the first couple episodes that I watched, not episodes, but first couple shows I watched that he was in, I was like, I'm not sure about this guy. Like, he's just kind of got that blank stare, and I'm not really sure
a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure what's going on behind his face. Like he's just he had almost like one of my favorite shows ever is Dexter, and he kind of had that Dexter look, like he's just dead inside, and he's just got this smile. But then as I've watched him, there's been nobody who has become more likable and rootable for than him for me. And I think that somebody who's, I've been kind of dipping my toe and now feet in the no limit cash streets. And so I'm kind of trying to pick up things that people do well at the table, not necessarily how they play hands, but just how they are. And he's gone from somebody that I just wasn't sure about to somebody who I look up to. And I think just the way that he handles himself with both pros and whales and action players and nits and just everybody at the table, I think is very admirable. And so to see him actually be the beneficiary of a Cabral just meltdown was kind of nice to see. I'm glad Cabral didn't get lucky and get some of it, and watching him lose was kind of nice. Kind of sucked that the last hand of the day, Cabral got his money in bad again and managed to triple up and not lose that much. I would have loved to see him lose $1 million, but instead he managed to get out only losing $250,000.
All right, Cabral, Kassouf, but you can only turbo one of them out of the poker community. Which one are you getting rid of?
I mean, I'd get rid of Cabral in a heartbeat.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not going to say that Cabral's as annoying as Kassouf, but he's close, and Cabral's just better at poker. Cabral actually can play pretty well when he wants to, so I'd just rather him be gone. On top of the fact, I don't know, I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but there have been always rumors about Cabral, and he does things that could help substantiate that. And I don't know, he doesn't really seem like the best dude to me. I think Kassouf is just more mentally just kind of on a different spectrum. And I don't necessarily think Kassouf means all the harm. I mean, I know a lot of it is calculated and it is meant to get under people's skin. And he did that at the World Series, and he pushed it too far. I'm sure any table that I would be at with him would be unbearable because he does all the things that I don't like at a table. But the fact that Cabral does it all and actually plays pretty good a lot of the time is really just, over the top. At least Kickoff, I don't think is probably a winning player in most fields. And I think Kissouf's probably a winning player in most fields, both no limit and mixed. And he's even more unbearable in the limit games. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
So
all right,
that's kind of my take there.
Let's get down to football. You were chomping at the bit to get this pod in. I know because you had a great week and you posted your normal meme there when you were having a great week. So let's get to
let me interrupt, because if anybody out there just thinks that like I front run and I only post and repost it when I do good, the week before I posted money on fire, not man on fire. So I take the L's, but I'm sure damn well going to take the W's when they happen. So
there you go. Yeah, you were man on fire, then you were kind of meh for a couple of weeks, and now you're man on fire again. And this week, let's just go over some of the plays you had. So on Thanksgiving, you had Cowboys and Bears, and we'll get to some of the other permutations of Thanksgiving games in a bit, but you had Thanksgivings and Bears, both dogs, and then you had Texans, Niners, Bills, and Seahawks. You went 6-0 with the games you loved. That is a hell of a week. That takes your record in games that you love to 22-13. I'm sure it was a profitable weekend for yourself, and probably not for the unlucky people you were booking bets with.
Yeah, definitely a good week on the games. A really good week on the games I really liked. And that's kind of I've been really trying to tier my stuff so that I can, increase units on the things that I really like and the opinions that I don't mind dying with. Obviously sometimes the action junkie in me gets the best of me and I end up like wanting to play, especially island games when, I don't necessarily love them as much, but the island games sometimes get the best of me if I don't really like it. And, sometimes I just want a little more diversity to the portfolio. So, basically if the two loves that I lose, at least I have, something else in the portfolio. But yeah, I've been trying to tier it that way for you guys and for myself, just so I know like where, my strengths are. Is it, picking volume and just doing better than the juice, or is it like really ratcheting up the things that I have strong opinions on?
Yeah. And the games that you didn't have a strong opinion on this week were the Titans, Giants. The sides that you liked were Titans, Giants, Chargers, and Broncos. You went 1-3 there. Like you said, smaller units. So you ended up taking your record to you were 1-3 there again, 33-31. So you are covering the juice on your light games. But yeah, interesting, right? So you've tiered them, and this not just as easily because the games you loved obviously have done well with, but if this is turned, or these records are turned around and the games you lean to have a much better record than the games that you love, then maybe it's time for you to kind of look back and see what your criteria is. But it's really worked out this year for you, and a decent sample. I mean, yeah, I understand that 100 games isn't a huge sample, but it is a decent sized sample for sure.
Yeah, I think that this is, I have a couple of people who text me all the time, like if I haven't put picks out in a timely manner and ask, and I know there's a couple people out there that actually, have kept score for me for the last couple of years, and they've, I've been profitable like on the picks that I post for the last several years. So I'm proud of that and I'm happy with that. I'm not necessarily naive enough to think that, I'm always beating everything. And also, I am kind of at the mercy of closing lines, and there are some times where I like things and, kind of just the way that I've gone about doing it, because I don't really like having accounts. And so to be able to put things early, I'd rather just be able to bet with people and maybe get juice free or reduced juice or things like that. So I'm kind of at the mercy of taking more of a efficient line. Like this particular week, like one of my favorite games was the Texans, and early in the week it was 4.5, and I knew that I was going to love that side very early and I wanted to pounce on it. But just the way that I've configured my betting, it's just, we just do things day of game, and I ended up getting +3, and it ended up not mattering in this particular instance, but there are several times during the year where it has cost me, and I may want to consider funding accounts for to be able to take advantage of things. I think I'm pretty good at guessing where the line's going to move and when I should wait and when I should jump early, but that's kind of something more for the off season. Right now, I'm just kind of enjoying doing it, peer to peer. And they're also, I've seen a lot of people, tout the prediction markets, which might be something that I might want to look into learning how to do as well. But for now, I think peer to peer is the best way for me personally. And I think the best way for a lot of you guys, if you have peers that you trust and you can do with, if you have like 3 or 4 people, you can kind of, if you send out your sides that you like, they'll just kind of usually take, even if you get like 1 or 2 plays with each person, you can kind of get on, if you like the Seahawks and I like the Rams and you're going to pay 110 juice and I'm going to pay 110 juice, let's just do it together and not have to, not ensure that one of the casinos make 10 cents.
What are some of the things you look for when you're going to wait on a line so let's say you like a game on Wednesday and then you look at it and go, like, what factors is it like, late money will pour in on a certain team. You're waiting for injury reports. Like what kind of things make you wait to bet a team?
Well, I mean, sometimes there are injury concerns that I'll try to predict and read the tea leaves of what I'm reading out there.
Like but Thursday, we got Amon-Ra is questionable, doubtful, low ankle sprain, whatever for Thursday game. Lions, are you like? Let's say you like the Lions, are you going to wait there for the injury report?
Yeah, but it could also just be if I think Amon-Ra is going to be out, then I probably wait on the Lions. If I don't think he's good, if I think he's then you might wait on the Cowboys or whatever. But it's also one thing that I seem to have like a very good feel of is how the public is going to think. And I also kind of have, certain teams kind of get slammed later, a lot of times. So kind of like seeing that, but just kind of being able to read, the national media and there's certain Twitter accounts and certain things that drive certain narratives. And when they're all kind of aligned in a certain way, like you kind of see the groundswell of support for the Texans grow as the week was going on. And, the first thing I saw so my process is kind of either Sunday night or Monday morning, and I've done this since before, but Bill Simmons, and Cousin Sal, if you listen to his pod, like they always do guess the lines. And I've always done that. I always just look at the game. I cover up the line and I guess what I think the line is. And when it comes in differently than what I guess, then I'm like, okay, let me think for a second. Why is that? So when I saw the Texans Colts game, I estimated that it would be 3.5, and it was 4.5. And I was like, why is that? And I think, and then I just realized that, I don't think the books think that people respect the Texans yet, but I can kind of see some swell of Colts dissension and Texans love start to creep into the marketplace. Like every sports talk person was talking about it. And so I was like, if you want Texans, you could get them now. And if I wanted the Colts, I would have waited. But I mean, I did wait because that's just kind of the way I bet. But in general, I kind of just knew that that's the way it was going to go. Like the game this week, the Lions Cowboys, I haven't heard one person say that they like the Lions. I mean, everybody likes the Cowboys. Yeah. So I definitely think that if you like the Cowboys, I'm seeing some 3s still out there you can get. I would guess that line is going to be 2.5 come game time. Especially, if it's looking less and less likely that Amon-Ra is going to play. So it might even go down to 2 or even 1.5. Like I could really see the Cowboys getting support. So if you do like the Cowboys and you do have accounts, I wouldn't be a bad idea to go ahead and put it on it now. It's definitely never going to 3.5. So you might end up, worst case scenario, getting a little bit worse of the juice. But I think even if Amon-Ra plays, I think it hangs out at 3. And if he doesn't, even if he does, like it still may go south of 3, but I think it'll definitely end 2.5 or 2.
While we're talking about that game, that's going to be a fun game on Thursday night to watch. I think the number 1 and number 2 offense in the league going at it. The Dallas Cowboys defense is now much better than it was early in the season when they were god awful. It's going to be a heck of a game. Both teams need to win. Simple as that. Both teams need to win. Cowboys are basically cooked if they don't win, and the Lions are in big trouble if they lose. So looking forward to that game 100%. All right, let's move on quickly to the Circa Million stuff. That quarter wrapped up, the third quarter wrapped up. Interesting. So 17, 1 and 2 in the third quarter ended up taking it down. They won by a couple of games, win the $150,000 third place or third quarter prize. Your overall total. So you had a couple of good of your, I think, 8 total entries. You had a 4-1 week and a 3-2 week. So the 4-1 gets you to 39 and 26, which if you look at the overall season, you're only 5 games out of 4th. So 25 games left. If you can run off like a 23 and 2 run, you can certainly climb your way back up in there.
Yeah, I think only like maybe even 3 games out of like top 20 or something like that. So yeah, we're right in. I think we even had a 15-point quarter. So I think we only missed like quarter to the prize by a point. Yeah, things are starting to come together. I had a long talk with Mark the other day. I think that our process has not been as good this year as it has been in the past. And I think we probably could have had these cards even better. I think sometimes you get, I think we kind of got a little spoiled by winning, to be honest, and just kind of like, if we're not we boat raced the field that year and we, our first quarter, we won the first quarter, and it's easy to like stay engaged and go through process and everything when you're up top. But when you're kind of buried, it's a lot harder to stay with process. And I feel like we kind of just threw away some weeks in the middle and it didn't really like put our best cards forward. So I'm looking to improve on that next year, but this card has a chance, and we've kind of started out this week talking, and we kind of agree on some games. So I think hopefully we'll have a good card to start the quarter and have some good cards, hopefully, because our process is kind of getting back to where it was maybe. But yeah, I mean, overall, we've got a couple cards that have a chance of cashing, and it's a new quarter. So hopefully we can continue to be man on fire and not money on fire.
All right, let's move on to Survivor. And this was the Bloodbath week in all Survivors, not just Circa Survivor. We entered week 13. And again, this was the Thanksgiving weekend that everybody had looked forward to and planned their season out to have certain teams available for 13A and 13B. 13A, of course, 4 games Thursday and Friday. 13B the rest of the weekend. And we went in with 900 Survivor entries alive in Circa. You had 2 of them and put them on the Eagles and the Ravens. I think that was probably your plan the whole season. And of course, they were the most owned teams because everybody else kind of had the same plan. And both teams went down. The Chiefs went down. Lions went down. So out of 900 entries remaining, only 49 got through, which is, 95% of the teams getting eliminated in the first half of week 13. I don't know if that's, I haven't, followed it for a long time, but that seems like unprecedented numbers.
Yeah, it was the most carnage in any Survivor week that they've ever had. There was I think Survivor Atlas or one of the accounts that I look at put out a list today, and it had like the worst weeks, and 94.8% I think were out or something this week.
And if people listened last week, they could tell that you were not sold on the Ravens and the Eagles, but you had gotten to this point, with that plan, but didn't love it. Obviously, you bet against both teams. You bet against them on Thursday in your love bets. And, I think we even kind of joked about picking both those teams in Survivor and just winning that last week, which has turned out to be the case.
I hated the Eagles. I didn't want to play the Eagles. I thought the Eagles were the worst play in Survivor, one of the worst plays ever. I knew it. And honestly, this was a very good learning year for me. Just sometimes you just gotta do the tough thing. And I mean, it was so obvious to me for weeks that Philly was going to be a terrible play. Unfortunately, we had already used the Bears on that card. There was one of the weeks, I don't remember which week we chose to use the Bears, but we used the Bears one week, and that was the one that had the Eagles available. I think we might have been able to get to Bears. I knew Bears were going to be the best Survivor play. regardless of the fact that most of the time you end up losing your pick. When you win, you just gain so much more equity. I wanted to kind of play the Cowboys versus the Chiefs on that pool because I just didn't want to play the Eagles. I didn't have the Ravens available. I thought the Ravens was a fine play because they weren't going to come in nearly as owned as the Eagles. Didn't have the Lions or the Packers, and I didn't like the Chiefs. So it basically came down to Cowboys or Eagles. And I don't know. Honestly, I guess I just didn't want to lose our last entry on, when we had a 75% available, a 75% win percentage available. And I think that's bad play. Honestly, I mean, I play tournaments all the time. And if you play a tournament not to lose, you become Alan Kessler and you never win, but like you go farther. And it's just, it's just not the way to gamble correctly. So yeah, I thought the Eagles were a terrible play and I still made it because I took the safety route and not the best EV spot. I don't think the Cowboys was the best great EV spot either, just because you weren't gaining that much leverage. I would have loved to play the Cowboys had I anticipated the Chiefs be like 20% owned or something, but they were only projected at 4 and they came in at almost 9. So it became a little better, but it really just came down to me between, it had to be the Cowboys or the Eagles because we didn't have Bears available. It basically just came down to, I really just didn't like what we were looking at for Christmas, and the Cowboys were kind of there. It was kind of basically going to be Cowboys, Commanders, or Chiefs. And if we use the Cowboys, we're basically left with Chiefs, who might be out of the playoffs at that point, and Commanders, who may have thrown in the season on Jaden Daniels. And I just didn't want to leave us without that spot. So I just played the bad play Eagles and got punished. But I learned a lot about Survivor this year. I've done a lot of Survivor content and I've done a lot of conversations on Survivor. And so I'm looking forward to enacting some of the things that I learned and also passing it along to people that are listen to our pod and my Saturday Night Sweat show on Survivor Sweat on the X platform.
B kind of went through fairly uneventful with the Rams being the only team going down. They lost 4 entries there, so down to 45 entries. And the implied value for each entry now, the $1,000 buy-in, is now over $400,000. So with 45 entries, there's no talk of, there's too many people to talk deals at this point. But there's certainly probably saves going on or people selling percentage of their entry left to people. But it's got to be really hard, and I know you've been through this in late stages of Survivor, to value an entry based on what teams are left and what other people have left. How difficult of a process is it to agree on a number, what's one of these things is worth?
I mean, it's just like any marketplace. The value is, it just basically comes down to, I mean, the buyer and seller just have to kind of agree. Sometimes early in the season, these things go for X, 3X, 4X their implied value because like maybe you feel like you have an edge. Basically, maybe you see paths that other people don't see, things like that. But at this point, you really can't pay a premium. It's just too much. Like your multiplier is not as much. When you're able to get hundreds and thousands on your money, it's you're dealing in a different dynamic. I mean, now the best you can do on your money if you pay par for it is you can 45x your money, and so, there's a reasonable chance it gets split. So not only do you have to get through the end, but you might have to split it. So you might be looking at 10, maybe only 10xing your money. So I think right now that before it was a seller's market, there were a lot more buyers out there. So you could kind of increase their premium, but now there's not a whole lot of buyers that can afford a $400,000 price point. Even 10% is 40,000. So, and you don't have control over it. So yeah, I think now if you want to go on the Survivor Sweat platform, you can see, I think some of them are discounted and it's good because like, if you do happen to have one of the entries, it's not bad to sell it even at a discount because you're going to end up probably pissing away some of your profit anyway by hedging. There's not a whole lot of people who are just willing to just go straight up and not risk just losing it all on one game, especially in the upcoming weeks. I mean, you might have to risk it all for a couple of weeks, and then you get to where you could, conceivably make hedges. But as you make hedges and you lose, you start, you have to start betting more on your hedges. Let's say, for instance, you had one of the 49 left and you had the Chargers bet this week. I mean, Chargers picked. Well, your equity is worth 400,000. You're like, well, I want to get something if I happen to bust now, because like we're so deep. And so you bet, let's say you bet 5,000 on the Raiders money line, or you bet 10,000 on the Raiders spread. Well, now you've just lost that 5,000 or 10,000. And now the next week when you play Tampa and you have to, bet on the Saints. Well, now you're betting you have to bet 20,000 to get back the 10,000 you lost with the Raiders and win profit something. And then, let's say the Saints just blow them out. You end up just like losing all this money in hedges anyway. So yeah, I think that selling right now is a very good idea to get some of your money out.
All right, let's move on to some futures and talk a little bit about what's coming up this week. But before we do that, I want to get your biggest surprise of the NFL this year. It can be a player, it can be a team, good, bad, either way. What's sort of the thing that you look back on in this season and just go, wow, never saw that coming?
Well, I mean, I think this is a year where, you could pick many different teams, but I think it's some of these younger teams, younger quarterbacks, younger coach quarterback combinations that are finding ways to win when the veterans and the veteran coaches and veteran quarterbacks are not. And maybe that's partly analytics and kind of the new age coming. Maybe it's partly the VR and stuff that these new quarterbacks have used. Maybe it's the college systems. But if you look at, who are the best 3 records in the NFL right now, it's second year quarterback, first year with him, head coach, May and Vrabel. It's Bo Nix, second year with Sean Payton, and it's Caleb Williams in his second year with first year head coach, Ben Johnson. So you basically have 3 quarterbacks from that class that are finding ways to win. And, obviously the Patriots have been a little bit more dominant than the Broncos or Bears, but I'm going to lump all 3 of them together. And it's just these young quarterbacks that are learning how to win. The 1-score games that Caleb and Bo are winning, and to some extent Drake May are winning, while your veteran guys like Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Goff, like some of these other veteran guys are finding ways to lose games at the end and not win games that they're supposed to. And you can say all you want about the easy schedule that the teams have had, but there's every team has easy games. I mean, the Broncos beat the Eagles and the Chiefs and the Cowboys. The Bears have beaten several teams and beat the Eagles on the road. Meanwhile, like all these teams that you're saying, like, the Bills lost to the Falcons, the Chiefs have lost some games to some also ran teams, and the Rams lose this week to the Panthers, and the Packers lost to the Browns, and all these teams that you think are good, they're losing to teams they shouldn't lose to. And meanwhile, the Broncos and the Bears and the Patriots are getting it done with second year quarterbacks. So I guess kind of just the rapid ascension of the younger quarterbacks and kind of the downfall, but not even the downfall, but just kind of like the not winning in the clutch that some of the best quarterbacks in the game have kind of fallen victim to this year.
Yeah, I'd probably add Trevor Lawrence in there too, and the Jags at 8-4 for sure. You mentioned the Chiefs. They lose to the Cowboys. They're 6-6. They probably have to get to 11-6 to get into the playoffs, right? So they got to run their last 5 games. Yeah, there's probably some sort of path where they get in at 10-7 if the Jaguars win the division, if the Steelers win the division and the Ravens don't, which I can't see happening. So it really feels like they got to win out. And when you look at, the lines, they're like minus 140 to miss the playoffs. And I'm just like, well, wait a second. They got to win 3 coin flips. Yeah, they have 2 games left. I think they play 2 easy games. They have the Raiders.
They have the Titans and
the Raiders.
the Raiders. Yeah. So they have two gimmies. So there's 3 games that they have left, really.
And if they're coin flips, basically, in those games, or at best or worst, then how are they only minus 140 to miss the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's just because so all 3 games are at home. So they should be over 3-point favorites in each of them. I think the Texans are probably power rated the highest of the 3 they play. They play the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Texans.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe the Broncos are similar, but the Broncos may not need the game at that time. Obviously, they would like to put an end to the season. But if I think really the Chiefs come down to this 2-team parlay. So whatever the money line parlay between the Chargers next week and the Texans this week, I think that's kind of like their true odds to make it, because even if they lost to the Broncos, that might be the one game that they could lose and still get in. If they lose to the Chargers or the Texans, I don't think they can get in, because that would drop them another game behind those 2 particular teams, and they would hold the tiebreaker. But if they beat both of those teams, that puts a loss on those 2 teams, and then also gives them the tiebreaker over the Texans for sure. And the Chargers, I'm not sure, but the Chargers, they might not win another game. I mean, the Chargers might be dogs in their last 5 games. So I think that's kind of the reason for the optimism if you're a Chiefs fan, and a little bit of the peril for somebody like me who has the Chiefs to not make the playoffs. One of our first shows, I bet the Chiefs plus 285 not to make the playoffs. So, I mean, I like my ticket, but I'm not going to lie. I mean, the media wants to write them off, but I think if you take a deep dive into the schedule, if they win these 2 games, I think they're going to make it. And so, yeah, I need to hope that one of these 3.5-point dogs can win in Kansas City. And yeah, I mean, I'm not in love with what the Chargers are cooking right now. So this basically puts a lot of my eggs in the Texans basket at this point. I think the Chiefs are a little more live than you or people want to give them credit for. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm just looking at the schedule, not based on how I feel about the team. I still don't think they're very good. I still think they're extremely flawed, and I am going to be picking the Texans this week. But that being said, I see clear paths for them to make it.
Looking at the Super Bowl futures, I thought we'd just take a quick look at it. Interesting. 2 NFC West teams top the odds at the Rams and the Seahawks. Rams 4.5 to 1. You've been on the Rams all year, and the Seahawks 7.5 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. Packers next at 8.5. Not sure, I guess that's path related. And then Bills 9 to 1. Eagles 10 to 1. Patriots 10 to 1. Broncos 11 to 1. Colts 14 to 1 seems terrible. I don't know how they would be 14 to 1, but. Broncos at 11 to 1 is interesting.
Yeah, I'd be definitely happy to book the anti-Colts.
Bo Nix.
The anti-Colts at 14 to 1.
I'll book the anti-Colts at 14 for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't think anybody has any confidence in any of these AFC teams. And it's basically because it's a quarterback-driven league. And ultimately, when you think about who you're going to support in the money games, you want the quarterback that you trust the most. And I think people trust Stafford the most right now. And the Seattle love might not be as much for Darnold and may just be a team thing. But I think also the fact that they have a clear path to home field advantage, being that the Rams lost this last game, and now like Seattle is going to play the Rams in Seattle in a few weeks. And it's basically winner's going to have like a strong inside track for the number 1 seed. So I think that's the bull case for Seattle. And then you look at the AFC, and I think things will quickly swing back to the Chiefs if they win the next couple games, because people have confidence in Mahomes. People want to have confidence in Lamar. We saw Lamar, completely the odds crater and get down to like that 10 to 1 area when, before this last week, and people want to still support Josh Allen despite the evidence showing that the Bills aren't really that good. People are hesitant to back Nix or Caleb or even May. I mean, May, they're kind of getting on because they have to pick somebody in the AFC and they have a clear path to the 1 seed. So I think it's just kind of a lesser of the evils there. But I think that's why the NFC is garnering more respect in the Super Bowl market, because I think they feel like whoever they play in the AFC, there's a chance that it's Knicks or May. And I don't think there's a lot of confidence in the market that these two guys will stand up on the biggest stage.
You sent out a tweet this week that I thought was kind of funny. You were responding to a bunch of people who tweeted at you that the Broncos are trash and Bo isn't that great. And I think you said, well, I'll read it here. Put your money where your mouth is. I'll take the Broncos to win the AFC. You take any other team other than the Ravens. Must post if I don't know you. And if neither Broncos or your pick don't win the AFC, it's a push. And I'm thinking to myself, why would anybody do that, given that they can get better odds? But to your point, I think it's just, trying to shut up the haters.
Well, I mean, I think the bet is very fair for me and for anybody who wants to. Look, if you truly believe the Broncos suck and the Broncos, no way they win the AFC, as Mike the Mouth tweeted out, the Broncos are the luckiest team in the world. They have no chance of making the Super Bowl. Well, here, if you want to pick a team, let's say you like the Bills, for instance, if you bet the Bills, you bet 1,000, you can win, I think, 4,500 if they make the Super Bowl. Yeah, those are better odds. But you know what happens most of the time? You lose $1,000. Because the Bills probably don't make the Super Bowl. It's somebody else. Like, that's just the way that odds work. There's 7 teams in the playoffs. They're one of them. So they're probably not going to win it. They're not going to win it more often. So this way, you can pick the Bills. You're basically free rolling 1,000 because there's no chance in hell that the Broncos are going to make the Super Bowl. They're the luckiest team alive. Bo Nix sucks. So you're basically free rolling me, because I can't win because the Broncos can't win. And you can win because you think the Bills can win. So yeah, I set that out and I got a lot of responses. But the thing is, everybody either picked the Bills or the Patriots, which is fine, because the whole thing that I wanted to do was basically just have some exposure to the Broncos. And I didn't want to have a chance to, I didn't want to bet them because then I lose a lot of the time. But this way, I kind of give myself two ways.
Anti-sweat. You get an anti-sweat.
Yeah, but also it's like, let's say, for instance, if I were to take, let's say I took 10,000 on 3 different teams. Let's say it was the Bills, Patriots, and Chiefs. Now, if the Broncos make it, I win 30,000. And my worst case scenario is I lose 10. But if the Ravens or the Jags or the Colts or some other random, or the Texans come in and they swoop it off, I don't lose anything. So I have a chance to win 30, but I can, the most I could ever lose is 10, and I have a realistic chance of pushing. So that was kind of my motivation for doing it. Unfortunately, nobody believes in the Chiefs. So
you didn't get one Chiefs offer?
I got 1,000 bet from
Matusow?
Chiefs. No, not from Matusow. Matusow didn't respond. Obviously, likes to throw a lot of things out there and not back it up with his money. But yeah, I mean, he thinks the Colts, but he doesn't want to back it up. But the only people that responded were Bills and Patriots, and I can see that. I can make a realistic case for both of those versus the Broncos, and I'm basically I'm getting 2-1 that it's not one of those teams versus the Broncos. Realistically, if it's not the Broncos, it probably is one of those 2 teams. The good news is one of those teams for sure will be on the road the entire playoffs. So I just need them to not roll off 3 straight road victories to get there, because they're in the same division, so they can't have home games. One of them can get the 1 or 2 seed, but the other one's going to be at best be a 5 seed. If you're a 5 seed, most likely you're going to start the playoffs at Ravens or at Texans. So, I'm automatically in pretty good shape with that situation. Let's say I have the Broncos as a 2 seed, and they're going to end up playing like the Jags or something like that, and you're going to end up having the Bills go to the Ravens for game 1, and then probably the Patriots, and then one of them will eliminate the other one. So yeah, I mean, I think I like my spot, but I don't think I took advantage of anybody, or I don't think that it's a bad bet for you personally. If you're only picking one team, you have a 1-to-1 bet, And if you think the Broncos truly suck, then you're basically have the edge over me. But from my total portfolio perspective, also I wanted some exposure to the Broncos because I already have the Ravens AFC bet. So if the Ravens get there, then I have the Ravens, I win money. And if the Broncos get there, then I have that money. So it's kind of like I kind of have two teams now. And so my portfolio is a little better. That's kind of the way that I thought about it. So yeah, that was kind of the motivation behind it. I had some people reach out and like, well, I'll bet the Chiefs if they make the playoffs. And it's like, no, if they make the playoffs, they're probably going to be a 2.5 to 1 to win the AFC. They're going to be favored because everybody likes Mahomes. So why would I bet a contingency? Like the whole reason why the Chiefs are okay for me to book is because there's a chance they don't make the playoffs and then I'm free rolling you. But if they make the playoffs, you have like 2 to 1 over me. So you're giving up something on the front end to get something on the back end. Whereas, if I want to book that bet, I could just send out a tweet when the Chiefs lock up a playoff spot and be like, anybody want to lay me 2 to 1? You can have the Chiefs off the Broncos. I mean, I can definitely get better than 1 to 1 odds. Who's going to bet on the Broncos to make it over the Chiefs? If they're both in the playoffs, the only advantage I actually have is that the Chiefs might miss the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. So you're sold out. Is that it?
I'm sold out on Bills Patriots, but
okay.
I will take anything else. I will take Chiefs. I'm trying to build still the portfolio out. So if you want Chiefs or Colts or Jags, or Texans, go ahead and hit me up. I mean, I'm sure you're probably going to want to play it safe this week and wait and see what happens. And the offer might not be there next week, but it also might be. I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously every week that goes by, things can happen, and obviously Bo gets hurt, then that's a bad thing for me. I mean, you have Drake May right now and he's on a bye and getting rest, and my guy's out there playing, even though it's against the Raiders. I mean, guys get hurt all the time, and if Bo gets hurt, then I just automatically am basically free rolling all these guys. Unless I think Jared Stidham, who also went to Auburn, can do it, which maybe he could.
All right. Well, looking ahead to week 14, we talked about the Cowboys-Lions game on Thursday. A couple of the other interesting games real quick. We don't have a ton of time, but the Colts -2.5 at the Jaguars. And I kind of like the Jaguars there. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I like the Jags. I think that the Colts have kind of been somewhat exposed, and the Jags have gotten better as the season's gone on. Sauce Gardner going down, big deal. Daniel Jones, not as good as he has been to start the year. And I feel like Jacoby Myers has kind of unlocked a little bit of the Jags. It sounds kind of stupid because he's just like a slot possession receiver, but I think that's been a nice safety blanket for Trev, and also Brendan Strange coming back. Having Strange and Myers gives him those safety blankets, and maybe BTJ can expand and expand the defense and maybe hit some of the plays that he made last year. So yeah, I like the Jags here. I feel like these two teams are a lot closer than the market's kind of telling us with this point spread. You said it's 2.5. I've seen 1.5, but regardless, let's just say it's 2. Home field advantage is worth like 2.5. So you're basically telling me Colts on neutral is 4.5, and I don't really think so. I think maybe at most Colts on neutral would be like 2. So I think you're getting a couple points in value or a couple of points in the money line if you want to play it that way.
Texans at Chiefs. Chiefs -3.5. I saw. I'm sure everybody else and myself, or all the Chief haters at least, are going to be on the Texans here.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Texans just from a pure football standpoint. I feel like the Texans are better than the Chiefs. The only thing is, it's a night game at home in desperation mode. And look, I mean, I'll say it part tongue in cheek, but also part reality. The Thanksgiving Day game between the Cowboys and Chiefs had 57 million viewers, by far the largest regular season game ever. I'm pretty sure the NFL would like the Chiefs to still be relevant for the last 4 weeks plus. Oh man! So yeah, I mean, I don't want to be Mr. Conspiracy, but
the Chiefs don't get calls. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, as Mahomes is dancing on the sidelines, maybe one toe is out of bounds before Ajeer hits him, and sends him into orbit and to the bench. I mean, the Texans are going to have to really watch out. I mean, I every call possible is going to be going against the Chiefs. Now, that being said, the Chiefs
Against
did
the
get
Texans. Yeah.
Yeah, the Chiefs did kind of get a bad whistle, against the Cowboys. Every questionable call did go against them. So I don't want to just be total the refs live with the Chiefs, even though for the last 6 years it's only been 95% Chiefs calls. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Chiefs got the benefit of the whistle in this game, but I'm going to take the Texans. I think this game is a very coin flippy game, and I think they play it 10 times. It's 5-5. So I can get more than a field goal here. I'm just going to take the Texans and hope that, I mean, I've said it on every show that I've ever done, is the line play is really, really important to me. And both tackles are out for the Chiefs, it looks like. So look, you have Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, against backup tackles. I really like the Texans on the defensive side of the ball, and I already don't really respect the Chiefs offense. So, I'm not really sure how many Kareem Hunt 1-yard gains it takes to get a first down, but it seems like if you do that 10 times, if you do that 3 times, you're going to be at 4th and 7. So I don't know.
The last one, Eagles -3 at the Chargers. What this Eagles team is, I don't know. We're going to find out. I don't know how good the Chargers are, but this seems like a pretty big game.
Yeah, this is a game I really don't have a strong take on, to be honest. I think that the Eagles on pure football alone should win this game and win it pretty easily. The defensive line should take care of this very, very bad offensive line for the Chargers and Justin Herbert's hand. I'm sure that he's going to even be releasing the ball even earlier, not wanting to get hit after he has surgery. That being said, there's not really a team with worse vibes in the NFL than the Eagles. And, they're leading their division by a game and a half, and they've got horrendous vibes around the locker room. And especially if the Cowboys win on Thursday night and the Eagles have to win, or they're only going to be up a half game on the Cowboys, I could see getting really tight in that locker room. We know that, there's a lot of Philly fans in LA, and it's going to fill that arena. So I would say we're going to be looking at 60% plus of Eagles fans, and probably 80% of the volume is going to be Eagles fans. So I could see, if things start to go downhill a little bit, that this game kind of gets away from them. But on the flip side, if they get up early, that the fans will be really loud and really in their corners. So I don't really do a whole lot of live betting, but I could really see this being a spot where whoever gets up in this spot, I might like live.
All right. And before we wrap it up, Roscoe, you have a tweet that you wanted to run by.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but Mike Tomlin's post-game speeches are some of the greatest things in the NFL. So let's see if I can pull this up here. So Seth Rohrabaugh tweeted this at the end of last week. Mike Tomlin will say something like, "We can't eat soup with forks. We need spoons." Then the Steelers will sign a 2018 Pro Bowler to the practice squad. Later this week, Mike Tomlin, or I guess after the game, Mike Tomlin says, so those same ingredients have produced 6 wins as well as 6 losses. So it's about how we cooked this week.
He was in the ballpark, right?
Yeah, pretty close. And then later this week, Steelers claim former Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen off waivers.
It's almost like the Steelers are the most predictable organization. It's crazy. I mean, this Tomlin thing, I love the Ravens this week. I think that this is the time where they just end this stupid team. But that being said, the one thing you can always count on by Tomlin and the Steelers is to have just some stupid win that they should never ever have. They do it once a month, and we're at a new month. We're in December, so I just hope it's not this month, because I really need these Ravens to beat the Steelers.
Matusow's got it wrong. It's not the Broncos that are the luckiest team alive. It's the Steelers. They do it. I don't know how they win. I just don't get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've gotten lucky to be 6-6. So I mean, at least the Broncos have been lucky enough to be 10-2.
It's a little different. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks to you guys out there for listening. Thanks to you two gentlemen for getting together this week, and we will talk to you next week.